Okay, so we're going to start off today's episode with a song. Beautiful theme song I heard listening to a podcast. So here we go. If it doesn't work out, I'm just going to cut it out. It's too loud. It's beautiful.
Oh my god.
I need something to cheer me up.
Oh my god.
Okay, that's enough of that. I just had to share that with you and anyone else who hasn't heard it. It's Paul Orndorff's theme from WCW. It's pretty wonderful.
It's definitely breathtaking.
Yes. Anyway, so we finished watching New Japan Destruction last night. It was from back in September, I never did get to check out who the second announcer was. I'm kind of veering off track here, but anyway. I figure we give a short summary, and then whoever wants to hear the full thing can listen on. So short summary is the first 6 matches were either non-existent or complete garbage, and then the last 3 matches were pretty good. Nothing, but even the last 3 matches, there's nothing that you'd really go out of your way to see, except for maybe the one spot in the main event where Ishii whipped out a Frankensteiner. That was pretty incredible.
That was awesome.
But I mean, it was. I would say it was a filler pay-per-view, and probably the worst I've seen in New Japan.
Really, I'm used to some pretty high quality stuff coming out of there, but this was not.
Not until the very end did we really get anything worth listening to.
True.
I'm not listening to, watching. Ugh. I think I'm still stuck on the sound issues we had earlier. That pissed me off immensely. That's why I needed that song. Needed to bring me back down to earth before I smash the computer with a hammer. Anyway, let's get on with it before I babble on. So the announcers were Kevin Kelly and some guy named Mark, which makes sense because he acted like a total wrestling mark throughout the show. And his voice cracked like a 13-year-old post-pubescent teenager. Oh my god, he was so annoying. Oh my god! And things like that. But the first match was a 6-man tag match. It was a Roppongi 3K, which is Rocky Romero, Sho, and Yo, versus 2 old dudes and a young guy, which is Tiger Mask and Jushin Liger and Kushida, the Time Splitter. And by old dudes, they're really talented old dudes, but they're still old. For instance, Jushin Liger's been wrestling longer than I've been alive, and he's a lot of fun to watch. The match itself wasn't anything that big a deal. There were a lot of high spots. It was just a match to try to get the crowd into the show, but there really wasn't much of anything going on. And in the end, Tiger Mask pinned Rocky Romero with a double underhook suplex. I know there's another name for it, but if anyone wants to correct me, they can. What'd you think about this one?
I thought it brought the audience into it, but I didn't think it was anything to write home about.
Yeah, if you missed it, it's like any other 6-man tag team match to start out a New Japan show. Mm-hmm. Nothing special, nothing bad, just it's okay. And I really don't have a whole lot else to say about it, so if you got nothing else to add, we'll just move on to the next one.
Move on.
Okay. So this is one of the very few one-on-one matches of the night, and one of the few that, nothing really happened in it. It was fairly short, wasn't it?
Pretty quick.
Yes, it was Toa Hinari versus Bad Luck Fale. Is that what they call it? Fale, yeah. Fale is a little out of shape. They said he'd actually lost 50 pounds, so good for him. And
couldn't tell it by looking at him.
No, he still was out of shape. And Hinari, nothing really to speak of. This was a nothing match.
It was very generic.
Yeah, and there wasn't any kind of story that brought it out. It was just there.
Exactly.
It was kind of boring, and in the end, Bad Luck won with a Samoan spike.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it had Umaga flashbacks.
Absolutely.
It made me think about a better wrestling.
Truly.
Because at this point I was like, I was like, these are the first 2 matches. It'll get better, and it took forever before it got better.
Truly.
It was about an hour and a half into the show before anything happened of note.
True.
And we're gonna come back to that. So the next match, we got another tag team match. It was Davey Boy Jr. and Lance Archer versus Michael Elgin and Ayato Yoshida. And Archer looked like he hadn't bathed in about 2 years. His hair, what was it you said about his hair? And the nice version.
I said his hair was so dirty, it looked like it was dreadlocks.
Yes. So it was because, and then you meant that because it got stuck together from all the grease and the nastiness, and not because it looked nice like a pair of dreadlocks would when they were nice, but because it looked like they were wrapped around each other like a dirt-covered cesspool.
It made me feel sorry for the other wrestlers.
Yes.
In the ring with him because he had to stink like a cesspool.
Exactly.
It was disgusting. The other guys were clean, neat, and orderly.
Yeah.
And this guy was so nasty. He just stood out because he was so nasty.
Well, he also stood out because he's huge. But the nastiness was what I couldn't take my eyes off of, and I'm just so glad that I didn't have to smell that man. So, basically, my summation of this match was Yoshida gets his ass kicked for the majority of it, and then loses eventually with they hit a double team they called the Killer Bomb, which was like a power bomb, and but he pushed down on him. It was not. It was another blah match. The crowd wasn't into it. I wasn't into it. It was at this point that I was thinking, I'm so glad that I'm sorting through something else while watching this, because if I had to spend every moment watching this, at this point I might be trying to fall asleep. You admirably watched this. What was going through your mind at this point? Do you remember?
It has to get better.
Yeah, it has to get better.
It can't get any worse.
Oh, it could get worse though.
Oh,
In fact, it did get worse pretty shortly. The next 2 matches I think were even worse, because at least none of these were offensive. Nothing really happened.
It was just very generic.
Yeah, just
basic.
Here's a match.
Quickly done.
No story.
No story. It seemed like no effort was put into it.
And the announcing was terrible.
Oh man, the announcing sucked.
This is bad. Okay, so I'm gonna move on.
No, one thing we didn't mention
really?
is Davey Boy Jr. I thought that his dad had very little personality, and you mentioned this.
Yeah, I did.
But his son has even less.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Usually Davey Boy, if you talked to him in the back, he was boring and stiff. But once you got him in the ring, he was more animated. But his son is just like bleh in the ring, and maybe
he's flat, man. Flat.
And you know what? I've seen him enough times to where I think we can say that it's just nothing really there as far as that. Although he's not a bad as far as anything else, but you don't feel any kind of emotion coming from him.
Exactly.
So anyway, nothing match, and then we went on to another 6-man tag match, and there was I think it was 3 or 4 of them on the show.
Which is really kind of boring. More than one usually brings the show down. Well,
there were a couple on some of the other shows, but this was like 4 or 5 multiple-man tag matches. That's too many.
The way they announced them, too, is really poor.
Oh, yeah. They didn't tell you who they were. You could barely hear the announcing, and then you'd get like a 2-second graphic when they come in the ring. Sometimes they didn't even do that.
Right.
Like there was one match later in the night. I think I've noted it in here. But this match was Chase Owens, Yujiro Takahashi, and Kota Ibushi versus Trent Beretta, Will Ospreay, and Chucky T. And what I wrote down was boring with intermittent flippy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the match, I was like, oh, please end it. Do you have anything to say about this one?
I think Kota Ibushi was the best in these wrestlers. He was more fun to watch.
And he's the one that got pinned.
Yeah, he had a little life in him.
Yeah.
Which is more than I can say for the other guys.
It was like a double team foot stomp. I don't even know what they call it because they say it so quickly and then it's moving on to the next thing. Although to be fair, if I was watching these matches, I wanted to move on pretty quickly too.
Absolutely.
But it was just a lot of flippy, no selling, and dull spots in between the flippy.
Well, there's a couple areas where you could tell that they made a mistake.
Yeah. It was nothing too brutal, but yeah. I mean, you got Will Ospreay, who most of his matches are just non-stop athletic without any kind of sense to them. Like he did like a triple black flip and then jumped over the rope out of the ring when he could have just jumped over the rope. But he had to show off that he could do those flips, which I can kind of understand it, but it just looked stupid. And then there was one where he just did like a 360 in midair and kicked somebody in the side of the head when he could have just kicked him in the head. You know, it looks kind of cool, but at the same time, if you really put any kind of thought into it, it doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
There's no psychology.
No, God, no.
Whatsoever.
It's like, why don't you just kick him in the head?
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I don't know. It's just not my thing. And it wasn't... The crowd was into it during the flippy stuff, but there was a lot of stuff around it that was just like dragging it all down. And this is the fourth match, and I still was bored out of my mind. Beretta. I said that already. Beretta pinned Ibushi with a double team foot stomp.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we went on to, guess what?
Oh, God.
Another 6-man tag match. Number 3 on the evening. And this was the worst of them.
Mm-hmm.
God, although I don't know, the one after was pretty bad too. So we had Juice Robinson, Taguchi, and Dave Finlay versus Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Taishi Ishimori, the Bone Soldier. So I couldn't hear what they were calling the people, and I'm sorry, I just have a hard time with Samoan names, so I butchered them horribly the first few times. But this match was pretty awful. There was a lot of comedy in it, involving the helmet, which was mildly amusing, but it was just like, why are these wrestlers so dumb that they keep punching him in the helmet?
And then they would scream like they broke their fingers. And stuff
and then they'd punch him again.
Yeah, they learned the first time. It's like,
so finally, I don't even remember who it was, but one of them pulled the helmet off of Taguchi, finally, after like 3 different people punched, like 3 times he got punched in the helmet. And it's like, and the ref let him have the helmet in the match because...
Reasons.
Who knows? If you took your brain out of it, you might laugh at some of that, but the action around it really wasn't that good either. And Juice Robinson, there was one part where he botched something pretty ugly. I can't remember what it was. Do you? Mm-hmm. At any rate, this match was probably one of the 2 worst on the show. And at the end, Tama Tonga pinned Finlay with the Michinoku driver, or his variation of it, which looked really weird, but obviously you're getting dropped with a pile driver, so that should be the end of the match.
True.
But at this point, I was wanting to just either take a nap or throw something. I'm just like, can we have something entertaining, and can we have something other than another 6-man tag match? And guess what happened? Just take a guess.
We got another
6-man tag match. Another 6-man tag match. And this was the one. Yeah, here I put who is actually in this match, because they announced the first 3, and and they announced the others really quickly, and he couldn't tell who was part of it. And they had 2 people in the ring to start. The other 4 people were on the outside, so it was really hard to tell what was going on. And they finally pulled it up for like 2 seconds after the introductions took forever, as far as bringing everybody in the ring. And there was another match. You said something about. I don't even remember, was it Kanehara was the one that they had the mask on him and they took it off and he started trying to bite everybody? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Basically, he's like a discount Japanese Hannibal Lecter, except for the comedy version.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like this was like a Monster Matanza where he's just a scary dude that eats people. This is just like, I'm going to bite whatever you put near my face. And then we're going to laugh about it.
Boots, he bit different parts of their body.
Yeah, it was...
Bit one guy in the head and caused him to bleed a little bit to try to give a little excitement to it.
It didn't work.
No, it didn't, but, whatever.
And basically this match was solely there to set up the tension between Taichi and Goto for their upcoming never open weight title match. And at the end of the match, Taichi just took his mic stand and rammed it into he kicked the referee first and then hit Goto at the mic stand over and over and beat the crap out of him. Mm-hmm. It's for the DQ.
That's it.
So another nothing match, although it was arguably as bad as the previous one, but I'll give this one the pass over the other one simply because at least it set up some kind of storyline. Mm-hmm. So there was a purpose, but it still was pretty awful to watch.
A bunch of childlike shenanigans going on.
Yeah, with Yano in there, it's not that much of a surprise, but the other dude who I hadn't seen before with the biting people was pretty annoying. In case everyone can't figure it out, I don't really like comedy inside the ring so much. unless it's like a comedy wrestling federation.
Exactly.
But if you're in a serious wrestling like New Japan, it kind of brings the whole thing down.
It detracts from the wrestling.
That's my opinion. If you don't agree, well, then piss off. So after this 6-man tag match, they had to change it up.
Oh, yeah.
So they had an 8-man tag match. That said, this was better. This was the first match I actually enjoyed. But really, did they need this many multiple-man matches on one show? It felt like Survivor Series, except for without any potential excitement. Like a really crappy Survivor Series. So, we had Minoru Suzuki. Oh, well, that was the other thing. We couldn't tell how many were in this match because of the way they presented it. And I have a complaint about New Japan. I'm gonna make this clear. Some of the time they had subtitles. Sometimes the subtitles were in Japanese.
Yeah.
Sometimes they had minor English subtitles here and there. But there was no consistency. If you had all Japanese subtitles, for the audio impaired, people who can't hear, that would make sense. But if you're going to do it, have it throughout the show. And if you're not going to do and the translator in the main event, we'll get to that. Oh my God.
There's no consistency.
No.
That's the problem. So you don't really have an idea what they
No, even if you were Japanese, if you can't hear the bad audio, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And the in-ring audio was really low. You could not hear it well over the show.
And the person they had that was supposed to be translating into English.
That's during the main event, or after the main event. Yeah, he was terrible. So anyway, so it's an 8-man tag between Minoru Suzuki, Taka Michinoku, yes, that Taka, El Desperado, and Zack Sabre Jr. versus the Bullet Club, Evil, Sonata, Bushi, and Naito. Not Ibushi, but Bushi. So there you go. So basically, most of the focus was on Suzuki and Naito because they have a feud going on, and Suzuki and Naito have been screwing with each other the whole time and during the match, and they didn't really care about the match, especially Suzuki. He just cared about beating the crap out of Naito, and that's what made it fun. And at the end of it, he was choking him out on the ropes while holding him in the air like he's strangling him, into unconsciousness. And while all that was going on, Evil pinned Taka Michinoku with the Magic Killer. He and his partner Sonata hit it. But that wasn't the thing about the match. It was fun. There was this feud going on, and you could feel animosity between the two guys, and that's why it was good. What did I miss? I'm sure I missed something. You kept much better notes than me through this thing.
I just thought, they did a lot of things to each other. Like Naito spits in Suzuki's face, and Suzuki doesn't give a damn about what's going on in the ring. He could care less. He's too busy chasing Naito around on the outside, beating the crap out of him. And
he put him in a chair and drop kicked him. And
yeah, I mean, it was just unbelievable, the fire between those two, and he was so focused on him that you didn't really care what was going on in the ring either, because it was more fun to watch those two.
Yeah, anything Suzuki's involved in is usually fun.
God, yeah, he is.
He's intense, and he's a sadistic heel, and it's fun.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
You enjoy watching him.
So it was a good match with a lot of story going on.
I forgot the main part about the chair that was so funny. After he beats the crap out of him with it on the ramp, then he pops it open and sits down and watches and waits.
And sticks his foot in his face while he's waiting for him to get up.
Just sitting there waiting.
Yeah, and this is Suzuki putting his foot in Naito's face, to be specific. Yeah, that was great.
That was awesome.
There was a lot of mind games in it. That's why it was so fun.
A lot of psychology, and that's what you want to see. Yeah. You want to see something going on behind them,
So at the my very next note is another 6-man tag match. Mm-hmm. And even though the match wasn't bad, at this point I was just like, another 6-man tag match. Did we really need, let's see, what is that? 4 of those and 1 8-man tag. Yep. Really?
Yeah. Boring.
This match wasn't bad. It was another match that was based more around story, which I actually liked. The story in this match was Okada had recruited Jay White into his Chaos faction, and they weren't getting along. Because White's a jerk, and Okada's a good guy. That's basically it, and Yoshihashi was stuck in the middle of these two. And they were facing off against Tanahashi, who has a title shot at did they say?
They didn't.
Yeah, if they did, they said it so fast. But anyway, he has a world title shot coming up, and he was tagging with Hanma and Maccabi, who guys I've seen one of them before, but not a whole lot of them. But the match was pretty good. Like it would be stuff like Okada was beating up on one of his opponents, and White tags in without him wanting to. Sometimes White would tag in Okada when he was beat up, and basically White was just being a total chicken shit heel. And before I get any further, what was our Jay White hair flip count for this match?
21.
Flipped his hair 21 times during the match, which is pretty impressive considering it's a tag match.
True.
That's a staple of the show. We've got to keep that going. Every time Jay White has a match, we've got to count the hair flips. And at the end of it, so there was both Yoshihashi and Okada were in the ring trying to beat up Tanahashi. Okada kicks, misses Tanahashi, hits his partner. They get him out of the ring, and Tanahashi pins Yoshi with I think it was like a backslide. I don't have what it was, but he pinned him after Okada kicked him in the face.
Right.
And then everybody in Chaos is fighting. Okada hates White. Yoshihashi is pissed at Okada. Everybody hates everybody. So, decent storyline match. You won't miss anything wrestling-wise if you miss it, but it had a purpose.
Do you want to talk about the paranoid, stupid commentator?
Oh, God. What?
You just have to go with that.
Oh, I forgot that.
This is the best part of all of
You
it.
want to do it or you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so at the end of the match, Kevin Kelly makes the statement that Jay White had set it into motion, set it up so that Okada kicked his partner.
Yeah.
So he's like the Joker in The Dark Knight. He knows what's going to happen in the future, step by step, to set it up. And the way the match was done, it didn't further this at all. It made no sense. It's like he just knew that they were both going to be in the ring at the same time and Okada was going to kick him. It's like, what are you smoking, Kevin Kelly? And you need to share it with some of the audience for them to understand what you're talking about.
You need to share with the audience so they'd have some life.
Yeah, they were pretty dead for most of the show, with a few exceptions. Naito, they were really into Naito. And Tanahashi, they were into in this match. But even Okada wasn't getting as much of a reaction this time.
Man, audience
He has not recently got that much since he lost the title.
Which is a shame because he's awesome.
Yeah, I really like Okada.
Love it.
So after this, we got the main event, which was the only match that I would say was comfortably above average. The other two were good, but they weren't. It was more storyline, which was fine, but it's not, it's not the usual New Japan. New Japan is usually more about really quality in ring wrestling, and there wasn't that much of that on the show. So it was Kenny Omega, the IWGP champion, versus Tomohiro Ishii, the Stone Pitbull, for the IWGP title. And they went about 34 minutes. I didn't count it, but I got a 30-minute mark, and it ended shortly thereafter. So there you go. I'm not going to sit here with a stopwatch like Dave Meltzer. That's just insane. I can't imagine that. You want to do that, great, but I'm not going to do it.
No.
I just want to enjoy the match. But they gave a 30-minute warning. That's how I knew it wasn't much longer than that. So, I forgot the package. The best thing on this show was a translation. They put up some Japanese, and then they put up the English translation. Who stopped Kenny? Who stopped Kenny?
Whoever they paid to translate that needs to be shot.
Oh, God. That's harsh. I said they just need to fire him. You said they're going to shoot him. But seriously, that's terrible. That's like bad NES translations right there. It's like the episode of South Park where they're like, with Kenny, who killed Kenny? Now it's who stopped Kenny. What they meant, of course, was who will stop him, who can beat him. But it was hilarious. I just died when I saw that. And of course, they had somebody say it in really, it was like a really bad Japanese stereotype, but I'm not going to repeat it. But it was hilarious.
It was funny.
Anyway, they beat the crap out of each other in this match. And there was some selling, but they never really stopped the brisk pace. Like, they were just going at each other. Like, and Ishii, if you've watched him, does the strong style, as they call it, where he'll no-sell a few moves, get up, they'll beat each other up, go back down, and just basically keep going at that for 30 minutes. So both men looked like they were totally exhausted by the end of this, and I'm sure they were. They stopped right at the point where they basically run out of stuff to do, which is good. If they'd have gone on much further, it would have been boring. But the highlight for me, and then I'll let you talk because I know I ramble on like a lunatic, was they're both on the top rope, Omega was trying to hit him with a superplex. Ishii scoots over and hits him with a top rope Frankensteiner perfectly. It was beautiful. And if you've seen Ishii, he's probably about 5'9" and 260 pounds. He's a big, thick man. So for him to hit that was just as impressive as it is, or at least pretty close to Scott Steiner hitting it back in the day. It was great. The end of the match, Omega won with a one-winged angel. And then we'll talk about the translator in a minute. But what did you think about this match? I know you're not much of an Omega fan, so...
I'm not an Omega fan, but I really do like the Stone Pitbull. I think he's awesome. He's built like a brick shit house, and having him do that Steiner off of that rope, wow.
Frankensteiner, yeah.
It was awesome. It's just shocking to see somebody that size pull it off and pull it off so smooth.
Mm-hmm.
You know. As far as Omega, kudos to him. You know, he has good stamina. He's blended into that city,
culture.
That culture. Thank you. They accept him as one of their own, and he's gone out of his way to integrate himself.
And after the match, he cut a promo entirely in Japanese.
And the audience was raving for him. Probably one of the best responses on
especially
that
after the match.
Exactly. So
yeah.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I like
the translator. Let's talk about the translator real quick. So here's what they did. Only for Kenny Omega, I don't know why. But only for him, they had an English person translating from Japanese, and he was the worst translator I've ever seen. So let me give you an example. Omega would say blah, 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 and then the translator would be like, "I am Kenny Omega," and then Omega would start talking because he was so slow that he couldn't finish what was saying. So you missed a ton of what was going on because the translator was like terrified to say anything, and then he would say it so slow and so low that you could barely hear it anyway. So New Japan, get better translators. If you're gonna put subtitles, put them on the whole show, because otherwise you're wasting your time. That's all I have to say about that. Any other comments about that?
Turnbuckle, Omega and Turnbuckle, that dive.
Oh God.
You gotta mention that. I mean, I have to give him
at some point Kenny Omega is probably going to kill himself. So what he does is, if you've seen New Japan, I'm going to try to paint this picture for you. They have the ring in the middle with all the railings around it. And then outside the railings, they have all the announcers with the tables. So what he did was he set up, after a long sequence, he'd had Ishii down on the outside. So he rolls him onto the table, hits him a few times, moves the railings back, climbs back into the ring, up on the top rope, does a springboard off the rope, and an elbow, Shane McMahon style, on the outside. And there's no padding under these tables. There's concrete, and then there's another set of railings beyond it. Yeah. So he did a foot, I'm sorry, it wasn't an elbow. It was a foot stomp. My bad. He did a foot springboard, foot stomp from the ring onto the announce table to put Ishii through the table, which did not break all the way. And then he rolled into the railing. Omega rolled into the railing. It looked incredibly dangerous, although he did it as well as you could have. But seriously, he needs to not do this, or he's going to kill himself. It's like that would have fit right in with the Jeff Hardy insane playbook.
Jeff Hardy and Shane McMahon.
Yeah, that was just crazy.
Nuts.
Don't do this. Don't do it.
I mean, we love to see crazy things happen, but not to where
at least put some padding out there if you're going to do something like that or something. It was just crazy.
The other part of that is they do things like that, and then they feel like they have to top them.
Yeah, and then you can't. At a certain point, the human body can't take that stuff anymore.
Exactly. So
you get like Mick Foley, Hell in a Cell, or something.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but so here's my recommendation: don't watch this show. It's not very good. If you watch anything, go watch the main event. It was the best part. Otherwise, you get what the recaps will tell you everything you need to know. If you watch this, you got what you needed out of the show. You move on and watch the next thing. So we're going to keep watching New Japan. We've got a few more shows to cover. And I don't know where we're going to go from there. We might do some more movie reviews. May even do some in between. But that's pretty much everything I have to say. Do you have any parting comments? Do you agree with my assessment?
Absolutely.
Not the best show.
Not the best show. Very disappointed.
Main event was the only thing really that was that great. The 2 matches before it were fine. The first 6 matches sucked, and there were way too many multiple men tag matches. So there you go. Hopefully y'all enjoyed listening. We enjoyed butchering it, although we didn't bury it too much because there really wasn't that much to say. So we'll sign off and hopefully see you next time.